and my own changing attitude towards the Ukrainian internet. But I'm sure many of you present in this room will find many, many things to connect to, especially if you spend a lot of time on the internet. And I think that's like everybody now, right? So, whoops. All right. So back when social media and social networks only began to appear in Ukraine, we all had quite high hopes about it. We were very enthusiastic about new technology. It seemed to promise endless opportunities for activists to unite, to engage citizens, to solve existing problems. And some of you may remember these early examples of online activism from the live journal community of people who were fighting to preserve the historical architecture of Kyiv, to the Facebook campaign to promote the use of the Ukrainian language, to the YouTube videos that were uncovering the misconduct of traffic police, and these crowd mapping, crowdsourcing initiatives such as crowd mapping the violations during elections, hello Bora, or this initiative to crowd map the volunteers during the snowstorm in Kyiv. And while the political situation in Ukraine at the time left much to be desired, the activists steadily increased the scope and volume of online initiatives. And it seems that it's not only the activists who have been enthusiastic about new technology, but also the observers. Note this article from March of 2013 on Textil, where the author writes, even though we're still far from the revolution, the online activism seems to solve concrete problems. And I'm sure the author here meant some sort of digital revolution. However, only at the end of the same year, we found ourselves in a very real revolutionary situation in the middle of Euromaidan, which was this popular protest movement both ignited by and sustained with the help of the new technology. And during Euromaidan, we really saw an explosion of online activism. And even though there was an activity from both sides, pro-Maidan and anti-Maidan camp, somehow at that time, the internet in Ukraine still felt like a rather cozy place. Facebook became this platform for people to unite and organize. And users shared the news about the developments on Maidan on Twitter, YouTube, Ustream, and the independent media often helped verify this news. And at the same time, during Euromaidan, social media fakes were relatively rare and comparatively easy to spot, and users have even been shamed into removing them. And also, more and more people have joined social media, both to follow developments and to get involved, which sparked discussions about the onset of e-democracy in Ukraine. However, the internet did not stay such a cozy place for much longer, nor did the technology appear to provide ready solutions for all of the post-Maidan challenges that Ukraine has faced. Similarly to other leaderless and seemingly spontaneous protest movements around the world, Euromaidan did not turn into a sustainable political force, able to articulate a detailed set of policies and follow through with a coherent set of reforms. Luckily for Ukraine, we've had a rather vibrant civil society to fall back on, which at times felt like the primary driver behind the reforms in Ukraine and still feels like that. However, although civil society uses internet a lot in their activity, I'm sure that activists, even the most tech-savvy of you who are present in this room, would agree that today technology cannot substitute some traditional mechanisms of politics, nor it should, because the discussions, the comments and the likes under a politician's Facebook post should not substitute a real policy discussion. And if these internal political challenges have not been enough for Ukraine, with the occupation of Crimea and the beginning of conflict in the East, the newsfeed of many social media users soon began to look like that. People became overwhelmed with the amount of human tragedy and suffering that they saw online. And I myself remember the time when I would be panicked to open my Facebook feed, afraid of what I might learn there or what I might see. And I know many other users who have also had to moderate their consumption of social media at the time. Whoops. Next. Oh. Okay. So researchers who studied the interplay between the technology and conflict, such as Grigory Asmolov of London School of Economics, point out that because we now consume news and interact with other users in the same place, the war in the East can become a very integral part of our daily lives and our daily experiences. And even if users of social media media live quite far from the front line. And this may lead to two very common reactions. The first reaction is the users decide to withdraw from social media altogether. The second reaction is that users may decide to abstain from any kind of political discussions online or get involved in any sort of activism. And another challenge for online activism today in Ukraine, of course, is the increasing polarization of users. The conflict may mobilize people online, but at the same time it exacerbates existing divisions and heightens the social tensions. And we know that the war in eastern Ukraine has divided friends and severed relations between families or within families. However, social media today allows us to block and mute users who disagree with us on, let's say, less contentious issues. And there are many issues that can divide society in Ukraine today. The celebration of the 9th of May, the implementation of decommunization laws, or the organization of the Pride March in Kyiv. And because technology allows us to block people who disagree with us, this leads to the formation of so-called echo chambers online, where users interact only with those who share similar opinions or have similar backgrounds to them. Social network surveillance and the opportunities that the internet opens up for pressure on users. This is more of a challenge for people, for example, who try to express pro-Ukraine views in Crimea, or people who live in the area affected by the conflict, or those, let's say, within Russia. And of course, low level of media literacy plays an important role here. And on this slide I have examples of some of the attempts where journalists and activists trying to educate Ukrainian users about how to be critical of what they see on the internet, how to recognize fake user profiles created to disseminate false information, how to spot fake news, or how to recognize trolling and bot activity. And last but not least, hate speech remains a great challenge for Ukrainian online activists. We originally started talking about it in the context of Russia-Ukraine conflict and the media coverage of it. However, we soon noticed that hate speech is really present in many other avenues of public discussions online, and it's used by both public figures and regular users alike. And even those who seem to argue against hate speech, sometimes they're using it themselves. And another challenge is online harassment. And any user today can become a victim of online harassment, but it's especially a problem or a risk for public figures, whether journalists or activists. They can come under fire for their activities or for simply expressing an unpopular opinion. So, where do we go from here? Should we all just fall out of love with the internet and become internet and social media skeptics of the rest of our lives? Well, I would actually argue against it, even though I have been at this point many times during my writing about Ukrainian internet. I would argue that we need to take a step back and look realistically at the opportunities and challenges the internet today provides for us, because it's only likely to play an increasingly important role in our lives. And today, internet in Ukraine, it still supports the old types of activism and fosters the new types of activism. It helps increase government transparency and accountability, and it fosters citizens' engagement. But at the same time, as we saw, it can help perpetuate conflict. It can help manipulate information and create ground for online harassment, and it cannot substitute traditional politics, at least now. So what I'm trying to say is that technology in itself is not inherently good or bad. It's just an instrument, and it's up to us whether we use it to our advantage or to our disadvantage, whether we create new opportunities with it or whether we create challenges for ourselves. And it's really up to us how we use it. And so I hope events like this can help us use it a little bit to our benefit. Thank you.